The fact that it took someone swapping out the ticket is crazy. All right, let's look at Kamala's surge. Who's fueling it?
The national polls first. This is Democrat versus Trump margin, and I want to point out this is average across the same pollsters. Look at Biden versus Trump, women and men. What we see is the gender gap is working in Donald Trump's advantage. He holds a 9-point advantage among men against Joe Biden, and Joe Biden only held a full 4-point advantage among women. But take a look now. Look at how the race has changed. Instead of having a 4-point advantage among women as Biden did, look at Harris's advantage. It leaps up to 11 points. In fact, men haven't changed their voting patterns at all, at least in the national polls. A 9-point advantage for Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, a 9-point advantage against Kamala Harris. What has occurred is women voters are flocking to the Democratic ticket. Look at that. Look at that. 4 points versus 11 points. That is the reason that Kamala Harris has turned this race around.
You said this is nationally, right?
This is national.
So what about in swing states?
What's going on in the swing states? So let's take a look at those Great Lake battleground states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. This is among registered voters. What do we see here? It's a very similar picture. Biden versus Trump women. Biden has a larger advantage in those Great Lake battleground states, according to those New York Times Siena College polls, at 10 points. But again, that surge among women, we're seeing the same thing in those battleground states as we saw nationally. Kamala Harris up 17 points among women. Men, very little change. Donald Trump doing a little bit worse, but still a very clear advantage. But the same story.
So glad that Donald Trump brought forward a really winning candidate onto the ticket that, consistently says women are childless cat ladies and shit. You know what I mean? He's really doing numbers with that one. He's gonna win big.
Nationally, the gender gap was working for Donald Trump against Joe Biden, and now it's working against him against Kamala Harris.
Is this the same, smaller, or bigger than? Can you put it in context? I mean, is it the same that we normally see?
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look. Let's go through time, particularly here. All right. This is the Democrat versus the Republican for president. Again, these are these key Great Lake battleground states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin.
Would Nikki Haley VP have worked? Yes, bro. I will stand by that. I think that Donald Trump with a Nikki Haley ticket would have actually been solid. Okay? I do.
2020 and 2016 are final. These are the exit polls. Yeah. 2024 is now. Look at the women margin. Look at what's going on here. Look how much better Kamala Harris is doing among women voters. It was 11 points Hillary Clinton back in 2016, 13 points in 2020. Look at the
God, Hillary was such a bad candidate, dude. Like, Joe Biden did better with women than Hillary Clinton did, bro. God, Hillary was such a uniquely bad candidate. Incredible.
This margin now, 17 points. Interestingly, the gender gap becoming wider over time. It's much wider this year than what we're normally expecting. Because, in fact, Donald Trump is winning men voters by 15 points. That's better than he did in 2020 in these same states, and it's even better than he did in 2016, although just slightly better. But the bottom line here is Kamala Harris is winning this race right now, at least in these key battleground states, because of what she's doing with women voters. Women voters are energized, and it is the reason that Kamala Harris turned a deficit that Joe Biden had into a lead.
And also, just really quick, when we talk about we do not know, because there's a lot that goes into it, that this is because she's a woman. It's just their support for her.
Correct. Yeah. We don't know. We don't necessarily know the reason. We just know she's doing better with women voters, significantly better than Joe Biden was, and better than either Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton did back in 2016.
Yeah, I think Hillary Clinton was uniquely bad, and that's why didn't get that same level of marginal support from women. And I think that Kamala Harris is doing better than Biden because she is not just a woman, and I don't think that's the major reason here. She's doing better because she's younger. That's it. The fact that it took someone swapping out the ticket is crazy. Harris and Biden are reuniting on the campaign trail. They shouldn't, in my opinion, but whatever,
Now to the race for the White House. Vice President Harris is set to lay out her economic plan today after making her first appearance with President Biden since he dropped out of the race. Former President Trump held another press conference, and Rachel Scott is here with more. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, Rebecca. Good morning to you. Well, Vice President Kamala Harris has only been in the race now for a few weeks. She has not outlined any policy plans yet, but all of that will change today. She is set to unveil her economic agenda as she really tries to thread this needle between touting the Biden-Harris record and laying out her own vision for the country. This morning, Vice President Kamala Harris set to unveil her economic agenda in North Carolina today, after appearing with President Biden for the first time since he dropped out of the race.
Few leaders in our
The craziest part of the economic agenda so far is that, like, it's obviously populist, it's obviously good. I'm actually shocked that they're defending it, and I think that the media might actually start swiping at them, because the New York Times already started. They brought together some of the most annoying economists to be like, yeah, at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break and Kamala Harris has no answer for it. They don't realize that she does. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about the fact that Kamala Harris unveiled the agenda for one of the most pressing issues that I think is a top of mind, right, for a lot of Americans, young, old, everyone. It is the affordability crisis that everyone is experiencing, both in housing and in just all consumer goods across the board. I mean, I don't find it odd that the media immediately started launching attacks, because that's what they do. They're in the pocket of big corporations at the end of the day. They're in a bind because they hate Donald Trump for volatility. And also, Donald Trump has a lot of economic policy points that will harm big corporate donors as well, like instituting major tariffs and stuff, specifically on Chinese goods. That's already something that a lot of people are worried about. But on the other hand, I think the Kamala team is also using this advantage to be like, no, this is the real way that we're going to solve the affordability crisis. We're going to go after price gougers. And of course, the media immediately, as soon as they show like a level of sanity in their policy making, in their agenda, the media has to be like, whoa, 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 you can't do that. That's communism. What's the reason she can't do things with Biden right now? Great question. I don't know if you know this, but she's running for president currently. There are certain things that she could do. I think foreign policy wise, there's definitely certain aspects of her agenda that she could communicate across the Biden's team and Biden's camp on foreign policy. But as far as like instituting more power to the FTC under the Biden regime is probably going to be too difficult to pull off, while also simultaneously running for president. Now, before people say, oh, she doesn't have Congress, a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is not actually, is not limited by congressional approval. So just so you understand, so she could technically do it if Biden wanted to do it. But I don't think that there is like enough momentum at this moment.
on so many issues, including to expand access to affordable health care like than Joe Biden.
The president touting the first ever negotiations with pharmaceutical companies to lower the cost of 10 drugs.
Kamala and all of us in this room are going to keep standing up for Big Pharma. I fought too damn hard to yield now.
The VP does not have unilateral decision-making power. They have influencing power. Exactly. 100%. She is already currently with this agenda, with this economic agenda. She's already personally saying that they're going to continue what they've done so far in the Brandon regime with respect to the FTC, with respect to Lena Khan. That's actually a really solid thing. For the record, I do think this is good. I will always be honest with you. When I see the Democrats doing something good, I will tell you, okay? I think that personally running alongside Brandon like this, not the greatest thing, okay? But that's fine. It's okay. Biden has also made bold proclamations, even when he was running as well. He's made bold proclamations about what he wants to do with the economy. So I think the Kamala campaign is basically continuing that agenda. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a very good thing, okay?
We're not backing down.
But with polls showing most Americans are still dissatisfied with the economy, the vice president will offer her own proposals later today. Her campaign says Harris will propose up to $25,000 in down payment support for first-time.
Remember this decrepit skeleton that everyone decided is unfit for office? Want to hear from him again? Yeah, I mean, look, they're gonna give him his flowers. I think that personally, they're giving him his flowers because like that's the only way you can get motion with him. That's it. There's like I can't see any other genuine reason as to why you would just like plaster Biden anywhere else. Like they're literally being like, hey, you're the GOAT. Thank you for dropping out and doing the right thing and not being an old curmudgeon that refused to like listen the reason. I think that's basically what this is. Okay. That's what I suspect is going on here. And it might be so that they can maybe get Biden to be more reasonable about some of the things that have to change right now when he is the president, when he has the power to set the stage, you know? Maybe they're doing the bear hug strategy. It also hurts the coup narrative. Exactly. When Biden comes out and campaigns alongside Kamala Harris, that completely deflates the idea that Republicans have tried to present, which is like the Democrats did a coup. Like it just destroys that narrative. You know what I mean? So that's probably another reason why they're doing that as well. But I think most importantly, they're keeping him around because, like, ultimately they want to keep him happy because, you know, he still is the president and he still has the capacity to completely f this up. All right, let's continue.
Home buyers who have paid their rent on time for 2 years. Expand the child tax credit, providing up to $6,000 per child, and implement a first ever federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries.
I can only get so hard. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is great stuff, chat. I'm not joking when I say this. Like, I was actually shocked when Biden was talking about a federal cap, like federal rent control. That's an insane policy. Like, that's not something that you hear from the Democrats a lot. A lot of times, like, Biden originally instituted some kind of rent control that was like super, super limited. Okay. Then he turned around and said, we're going to try to push for a federal rent control across the board and we're going to limit it at 5%. And that was also pretty fire. Every time they were like, bro, you're old, he would just come out and be like, I'm going to do another progressive populist policy. Okay. Every time they'd be like, you're old, please leave. He'd be like, I'm doing socialism, Jack. Phenomenal message, worst messenger. I kept saying that back then, and I will repeat that. Now, not the worst messenger, and the message is great. So I will give credit where credit is due. Okay, these are things that are genuinely good. It's one of the first times where I've ever seen the Democratic Party actually fight. Okay.
An idea already drawing criticism from Donald Trump.
She wants price controls, and if they worked, I'd go along with it too, but they don't work.
The former president speaking at his golf club in New Jersey, surrounded by groceries, for a press conference his advisors said would focus on the economy.
We're going to have a crash like a 1929 crash if she gets in.
Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, accusing Trump of rooting for economic catastrophe.
Democrats literally lie every 4 years about what they will say will happen. What makes you think she isn't lying about literally everything she's saying? You're not wrong about this. Democrats have consistently lied about what they're going to end up doing. The difference in this circumstance is that you have to pay attention to what they're lying about and what they've done so far. On the issue of the economy, the Biden administration has actually pursued through the federal regulatory bodies a pretty radical agenda. That's not a joke. That's not a lie. That is real. That is something that they did. But more importantly than that, Democrats ultimately never make proclamations of this sort. This is new. They do radical proclamations when it comes to, like, oh, we're going to do amnesty, which is weirdly enough an area where they're actually retriangulating to the right. And I don't like that. So in a weird way, it's been a complete swap. On the one hand, they literally are pushing for economic policies that they don't openly state ever, that will immediately be considered like communist, socialist, radical, crazy by the Republicans, that they shy away from usually. You say that this is the first time you remember Dems fighting, right? Well, Kamala is the first admin since 1992 that doesn't have Clinton advisors for economic and foreign policy. She'll turn them down, they asked. This is the shift, in my opinion. Yeah, this is for the Democratic Party. If we are looking at this with respect to like what the Democrats have put forward, usually this is one of the boldest agendas that I've ever seen. And something that's really interesting about the way that they're communicating this agenda is that they're not, like, one thing that Kamala Harris said that I found very interesting was, if I win the Senate, we'll do this, right? She didn't just say, oh, we're going to do this when you elect me. She literally has said, once I win the Senate, like once we win Congress and the White House, we will pass this. So that's a really interesting way to message. That's number one. Number two, some of the policies that she's talking about does not require congressional power. Some of the things that she's talking about are directly done through the federal regulatory agencies, which she would have control over. So that is actually really solid.
I put that to the former president. He's been saying that he believes that you want things to get worse so that you can campaign on it, that you're rooting for failure. What's your response to that?
I wish I didn't have to do this. If our country were run by Democrats and it was run beautifully, where we were really being productive and everything else, I would have never done this.
Trump went from discussing inflation to weighing in on the weight of electric trucks to calling Harris a communist. Some of his own Republican supporters have begged him to focus on policy, but Trump making it clear he's not going to change.
I think I'm entitled to personal attacks. I don't have a lot of respect for her. I don't have a lot of respect for her intelligence, and I think she'll be a terrible president. And I think it's very important that we win. And whether the personal attacks are good, bad, I mean, she certainly attacks me personally. She actually called me weird. He's weird.
Yeah, so don't expect those personal attacks to change anytime soon. Well, the first vice presidential debate is now set. Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D. Vance have both agreed to face off on October 1st. And of course, ABC News.
Mentioning congressional support also adds a cushion for failure. It's also honest. And I don't know why they don't do that more frequently, because it's good to also mention that you need congressional approval in this situation. And I think it helps the down ballot chances. Like, there are obviously Senate races on the same ballot. There are House races on the same ballot that could tilt in the direction of the Democratic Party's control over both the House of Representatives and the Senate and the White House. So that's like a good thing that I think you should be communicating overall. It's also great that they're doing the "you're weird, we want to help people, you just want to talk shit about things that nobody cares about." And you can tell that that's good because Donald Trump is responding to it like a little baby.
News will have the very first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris on September 10th, Rebecca.
And there will be so much focus on that, Rachel. There's also focus on the vice presidential candidates, and our new poll shows how Americans are viewing them.
Yeah, and this race has entirely transformed this summer. A new candidate in the race, and both campaigns choosing their running mates. So how are they stacking up? Our new ABC News, Washington Post, and Ipsos poll shows that Governor Tim Walz is getting more of a positive reception at 39% compared to his Republican rival, Senator J.D. Vance, who is at 32%. And it's not just the reception. More Americans approve of Walz for the job. Now, both of these candidates are veterans. Walz served in the National Guard, Vance in the Marine Corps. Our poll shows that Vance is polling slightly higher among veterans. This is notable given.
That's not surprising. Come on. We know why. That's because he's red. He's a Republican. That's it. First of all, a lot of vets are hogs. It is you think it's surprising? Come on, dude. It's because he's Republican. Vets are hogs. A lot of vets get a steady dose of Fox News. Yeah, there's a shit ton of hogs in the field of vets in this country. That doesn't mean that there aren't like plenty of, even socialist veterans and whatnot. Obviously, many of them are in this chat, but like, that's not shocking to me at all.